Hello everyone, and welcome to part 1 of my PC building tutorial. In this series, we will be discussing everything that there is to know about building your very own PC. Now, building a PC is something that a lot of people fear or struggle to do, mainly because there are so many complex things and so many things that could go wrong. But as long as you're careful and take your time, I'm here to show you that building a PC isn't really that challenging at all. It's super simple. So today though, before we even get into building the PC, we want to be familiarizing ourselves with our components, and specifically today we will be talking about the motherboard. Generally, most computers have around 7 main components: the motherboard, the CPU and CPU cooler, the GPU or the graphics card, memory or RAM, the power supply unit, the storage devices such as an M.2, SSD or hard drives, and the case. There are also other peripherals such as extra fans, disk drives like a DVD drive, sound cards, capture cards, and other things too. Today though, I want to focus on the motherboard because this really is the backbone of the PC. It's what ties all your parts together. Basically, you connect all the components that you need for your build onto the motherboard, which is why it is one of the most essential parts of the build. I will be using the Gigabyte 990 FXA UD5, which isn't the most recent motherboard, but it will definitely be sufficient enough. There are many different sizes of motherboards, ranging from the small mini ITX boards to the eATX boards. This is a pretty standard size ATX motherboard, however. It's important to note that you always want to make sure that the motherboard that you choose can fit into your PC case. So, let's take a closer look at all the different areas on this motherboard, shall we? We'll start off with the CPU socket, located somewhere around the middle back of the motherboard. This is what will house your CPU, and as you can see, all those hundreds of little holes will fit into the hundreds of little pins on the CPU. Just above that as well, you can see the ports for the CPU fan, for the cooler, and the 8-pin power connector to give power to the CPU. Next up, we have the memory slots, or DIMM slots, located right beside the CPU. This is where you will connect your RAM cards into, and most standard motherboards have around 4 of these slots side by side, just like this. It's important to make sure that the RAM you use, so DDR3 in my case, is the same type that the motherboard will accept. And as you can see above the slots, it says DDR3, so I know that I need to use DDR3 RAM. Now, just below these slots, we can see the 24-pin power connector. When you connect the cable from the power supply, this will provide power to the entire motherboard. It's the biggest power cable out of them all, and it's pretty hard to miss. Moving along to the SATA connectors just above the 24-pin. This is what you would use to connect your storage devices like an SSD or a hard drive using a SATA data cable. You need one for each storage device. Now we come to our front panel connectors, located, as the name suggests, at the very front of the motherboard. Now with this, every motherboard and every case is different, and there are a lot of little connectors here, some of which we won't end up using, but the main areas are for the smaller pins like the speakers, power switch, reset switch, different fan connectors, and the USB ports. Next, we have the PCI Express or PCIe slots. These are what you would use to connect all your cards into, your graphics card being the main one, but also other cards like a sound card or a capture card if you wanted. Most graphics cards will use the PCIe 16 slots, and if you look at the words above the slots, you can see that 2 of these slots are PCIe 16. So make sure that you put your graphics card into the correct one. And last but not least, we have the I/O and I/O shield. This is the part of the motherboard where you will find all your external ports, like your internet network port, a bunch of USB ports, and a basic sound and audio and microphone ports. And that is basically it when it comes to the motherboard and the different components of the motherboard. I hope you enjoyed it. Now that you know more about the motherboard, now we can actually start to install some of the PC components. See you in the next one.